Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. We're in the Fantasy Trip, the End Labyrinth book by Steve Jackson Games. We are continuing our delve into the combat. We're going to look at missile weapons today. So let's see if I actually have that marked. I do. So let's read about missile weapons and see what all bonuses you get and whatnot for missile weapons. Missile weapons. Generally, only a disengaged figure may attack with a missile weapon. A figure with a missile weapon ready can get off one shot if suddenly engaged in combat, but must then drop the missile weapon. Missile weapon fire calls for the dex adjustment based on the number of megahexes distance to the target. And a megahex is 3 hexes across. So if you're using a grid, it'd be 3 squares across. If the target is in the same megahex or is 1 or 2 megahex distance from you, there is no dex adjustment. If the target is 3 or 4 megahex distant, the dex is -1. If the target is 5 or 6 megahex distance, the dex is -2. Otherwise, missile weapons follow the same line of flight rules as do thrown weapons. The target must be in front of the attacker, and the attacker must roll to miss any standing figure in the way. A missile which misses its target continues until it hits a wall or figure. Roll as above to hit or miss each figure in line of flight passing through, making a new dex adjustment as necessary. A roll of a 17 or 18 on any target but the first, or any hit on a foe you were trying to miss, breaks the arrow but does not affect the bow. But if that was your first target or first roll, it'd probably break your bow. Missile weapons never get a bonus for the target's facing. The dex adjustment for missiles and thrown weapons distances are not considered when determining which figure attacks first. Crossbows. Crossbows are powerful, deadly missile weapons, since a crossbow is a mechanical device for storing energy and releasing it to propel a bolt. The strength rule for crossbows are special. In order to ready, i.e. cock a crossbow, a figure must have the minimum strength listed for that type of crossbow, or use a crankwin. Note also that crossbows can rarely be fired more often than every other turn, even if it is cocked by hand. Any figure can fire a crossbow. However, the dex of the figure without the crossbow talent will be at a -4. Furthermore, anyone too weak to cock a given crossbow is certainly too weak to hold it steady and fire it accurately. A big crossbow is heavy, and it kicks. Therefore, dex for firing a crossbow is also a -1 for every strength point by which you are too weak to cock it. Yes, it's possible for your weakling characters to carry heavy crossbows, cocked by their dwarven friend in order to lay down a barrage of 3-die bolts at the beginning of each battle. However, it will be a very inaccurate barrage. Crankwinds, or windlasses, are devices used to cock a crossbow mechanically. There are several different types. The differences don't matter here. A crankwind requires a strength of 8. It takes 12 turns to fully cock a crossbow with a crankwind. On the 13th turn, the user can place a bolt in the bow and fire. This assumes the archer has the crossbow talent. If he doesn't, he can still use the crankwind, but it will take twice as long, or longer if the GM rules that the user knows nothing about weaponry. A partially wound up crossbow can be set down without unwinding. If necessary, the work will not be lost. Not all crossbows use crankwinds. Half of all crossbows cannot be used with a crankwind. 1/6 cannot be used without one. 1/3 can both be used with a crankwind or hand-cocked, as the user wishes. There is only a 33% chance that a given crankwind type crossbow will work with a randomly chosen crankwind. since designs differ. These facts and a couple of dice will let a GM determine that what the player have looted from their latest kill or found on sale in a shop. If you found it on sale in a shop, though, I wouldn't penalize you in any way. I'd say you just have to take it to a person that makes it if you find it from a shop that doesn't make it, and then they can get you a crank one for the cost of a crank one that actually works with that crossbow. Giant crossbows are sometimes used as siege weapons or traps. A proper name for an enormous crossbow is scorpion. The term arbalist may be applied either to a giant bow or a large handheld model. A scorpion always requires its own giant-sized crank one for cocking, and it takes at least 12 turns to wind up. A figure with the crossbow or engineer talent will be able to use a scorpion. All others are at a -4 dex to fire it, and may have a great deal of difficulty using a crank one without breaking something or injuring themselves. A giant crossbow does not do as much damage proportionately as a small one. They lose efficiency with size. Even so, an inefficient weapon that can throw a javelin-sized bolt several hundred yards, doing 4 or 5 dice of damage to the unfortunate target, should not be taken lightly. Crossbows normally fire every second or third turn, depending upon the user's dex and type of bow. Reloading a crossbow comes under the ready weapon option for all purposes. Prone and kneeling fire. Crossbows may be fired from the prone position. Any bow may be fired from the kneeling position. And a crossbow may be reloaded by a prone or kneeling figure. A crossbowman lying prone gets a +1 dex adjustment. A standing, sitting, kneeling crossbowman with something to brace the weapon on gets a +2. Hitting your friends. An attacker must roll to miss when his missile or thrown weapon passes through the hex of a figure he does not want to hit. In the same way, he must roll to miss a friendly figure when he strikes at an enemy in the friendly figure's hex and misses. This can happen when a standing figure tries to hit an enemy on the ground in hand-to-hand combat and misses. He may then roll one by one to see if he hits other enemies in that hex. If he misses them all, he must roll one by one to miss each friendly figure in that hex. He stops rolling when he hits one figure or misses them all. Figures in hand-to-hand combat never hit their friends in the same hand-to-hand combat. Only standing figures striking into a pile must roll. Missile spells. There are 4 missile spells: Magic Fist, Fireball, Lightning, and Wizard's Wrath. They are called missile spells because the dex adjustment is made just as though they were real missiles. Also, like missiles, they can miss their target and hit something else. When using a missile spell, a wizard must roll to miss figures that are in the way before the spell reaches its intended target. She must roll to miss or hit figures behind the original target if her spell misses it. Oversized targets. Everything else being equal, a big target is easier to hit. Therefore, missile and thrown weapons and missile spells get a dex bonus when aiming at a multi-hex figure. This rule assumes that when you fire at one hex of a multi-hex creature, a shot which otherwise would have been a near miss might hit an adjacent hex of the same creature. When you make a missile, thrown weapon, or missile spell attack on a multi-hex creature, proceed as follows. 1. Pick your target hex on the creature you are attacking. Your line of flight is calculated with respect to the center of this hex only. Count the other hexes of the target figure as followed. Any hex at which you could take a clear shot, the line from the center of your hex to the center of the hex is totally unobstructive counts 1. Any hex which would require you to roll to miss something in the way, if it were the target hex, counts as half. Any hex whose center point is obstructed by a solid obstacle like a wall or by another hex of the target figure counts as 0. Add up the value of these hexes and round down. 3.5 counts as 3. This is your dex bonus for that shot. This dex bonus cannot exceed 4. Note that this makes the facing of the target as important as its size. A 5 hex long lizard attacking from the side, if you have a clear shot, would give you a dex plus 4. If it were running straight at you, though, it would present only 1 hex wide target and would give you no dex bonus at all. Sheltering directly behind fallen bodies. Any figure may lie prone or kneel in the same hex with a sheltered body. A missile/thrown weapon attack then has a chance of hitting the body instead. Any figure making a missile or thrown weapon attack against a sheltering figure suffers a -4 dex adjustment in a situation where it matters, i.e. the body was still alive. The archer must make a second roll, rolling the adjusted dex to try to miss, if and only if he misses his original target. And if that body isn't alive, they don't have to try to miss. It doesn't matter. And that ends the missile weapon section for the combat. The following 2 things I'll be trying to go over in the following combat videos will be pole arms and hand-to-hand combat. The rules for pole arms are slightly different than the rules from other games like Pathfinder and D&D. So I like the rules in this, and I would probably try to implement them if my party wanted to use the pole arms in Pathfinder. So, well, let me know what you think about missile weapons and how crossbows and stuff can be used in the comments below. Until we all game again, guys.